Hello YouTube, Jonathan800 here. I recently saw Alex the Rambler do his own 1939 start date Soviets and I was like, I don't remember it being that hard when I played it myself a year ago. Also, I don't really like the video I posted earlier as I just mostly talk about it and not show gameplay, so here's one that actually does show gameplay from start to finish. Now on the topic of the finish, the conflict with them goes alright. And because I wanted Sweden, I escalate an accidental bombing into getting them to fight with Finland. Now in hindsight, I actually could have done desperate measures as Sweden formed a faction, and faction leaders are automatically majors. This would have been a smart move, but stupid me forgot to think about that as all I could think of was fixing the Air Force. It turns out that Sweden was a pushover. Some of their troops were encircled in Finland while most got encircled in the northern part of the country. Basically, the rest of Sweden was open for the taking, and afterwards, the Soviets got not one, but two countries in the resulting peace deal. In a twist that everyone saw coming, the Germans cancelled their non-aggression pact and attacked me. What I didn't expect was it to happen in February, meaning I did not get Bessarabia. Now some of you may be asking, why do you have all your troops on the front line and not the Stalin line? My answer to you is, you keep all your industry and you can always retreat, and maybe a little bit of LARP. The Romanian line for some reason was extremely thin, so I decided to make a breakthrough to get as much damage as possible. I did encircle and destroy a few divisions, but I would later have to fall back across the whole front. With the line consolidated, I could then finally try to make some offensives. Despite the line now holding against most attacks, it does not mean that I can launch offensives like I thought it meant. It turns out that 20 with tanks fighting in winter with less org than usual do not make the greatest offensive units. They did still punch through though, but it was extremely slow and tedious. Some Lithuanian land was liberated, but the offensive would eventually be halted as the Germans reinforced their breakthrough heavily. Now with 35 with tanks, I felt more confident in making offensives. Since I reloaded the game after taking a break, the German AI broke, meaning some points in the front line were very thin. The infantry broke through in southern Poland with decent success. It was also during this offensive desperate measures finally ended and I could do lessons of war. Despite the tanks not being fully reinforced, I launched the offensive anyways. Zhukov in the south with Konev in the north would try to deal as much damage as possible. With the possibility of a massive encirclement, the tanks would rush to meet with the VDF paratroopers assisting in encircling Army Group Center. Zhukov would liberate Warsaw as the encirclement closed, taking out quite a few Germans, but not as many as I was expecting. With the German lines no longer entrenched, Zhukov pushed towards the Baltics and made a massive Courland pocket that spanned from East Prussia to Estonia. The pocket would be again closed with the aid of paratroopers, with their special ability to make the enemy lose a ton of their org for some reason. Is this method cheesy? Of course, but having to smash through org walls and death stacks are not fun, and this makes it tolerable. With Army Group North completely destroyed, another attempt to take out Army Group Center was launched. This offensive did liberate Danzig and most of Poland, but it also showed the state of the German army. Some areas of the line were already pretty thin, which meant that even though the encirclement didn't have enough for a Reddit post, it still took out a decent chunk of the front line. With most of the attention of the Soviet army being on Germany, it was time for a detour into the Balkans. Once again, the VDF helped the ground troops bust through the front line and create an extremely juicy encirclement. Konev's troops were too powerful for the Romanians to deal with, and soon Bucharest would be liberated to advancing Soviet troops. Not shown was an extremely grueling campaign to get to Hungary, Bulgaria, and the rest of Romania. A couple troops were lost as I forgot to move the air over, and don't say use the automatic air tool, it never works for me. Eventually a push from Poland would encircle a massive chunk of the Balkan armies, as it turns out you need supply for your tanks, which the Balkans really lack. With the line being weakened enough and me being able to convert all of my infantry to 9-1s, I decided to do the most Soviet thing and mass assault the entire front line. Unexpectedly, the Germans completely crumbled under the weight. There were very few red bubbles as the Red Army marched through Axis-controlled land. With the tank force in the north, the prize was clearly going to be Berlin. The tanks rushed through eastern Germany, mostly trying to get some last-minute encirclements. Konev, however, got the bragging rights as he managed to take Berlin. Now, to screw over the Allies, the Red Army rushed in to take the Benelux so they could be liberated from capitalist oppression. This worked for the most part, but Germany capitulated before it could take Luxembourg and France. In case you didn't know, if you occupy a country that you have a common enemy with but are not in the same faction, you can take them in the peace deal. With Italy as the only major remaining, a large chunk of the army raced down to take them out. With the fall of Italy came the fall of the Axis, and the conflict was finally over in 1943. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, you know the deal, and this is Jonathan 800 signing out.